Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the TMI Show, the TED Manila Information Show. We go by TMI for short because we actually do bring you way too much information. I am Manila Chan. That over there, back in quasi studio, Ted Rall kicked whatever bug was trying to get him. I'm glad. I'm glad it didn't become pneumonia, Ted. I'm glad you caught it early.
That'd be bad.
Some medical intervention, we'll say.
Exactly.
Of course, we are live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So you guys, please be sure to like and follow this show. We are growing at a nice steady clip. We would love it if we can continue to grow even faster, so we can actually, make a real go of this show. We talk about anything and everything. Today, we normally do a lot of politics. Today, Ted, we are going to do a little bit of like family lifestyle-ish. Is that kind of a fair way to frame it?
It's about parenting and how to raise your kids. So I mean, it goes to culture. So, and it's interesting, even if you are not a parent or you're not planning to be one, it'll affect all of us. It's about the way we view the world and the way people should be raised.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. And before we start the show, Ted, I gotta say happy birthday to my mom. Today is her birthday, so happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Manila Mom.
And in Lao, that's how parents are referred to. Do you know that you're referred to as the parent of and of the eldest child. So you bring up
Oh, really?
Yeah, like that is your new title. So once you become a parent,
so it's kind of the opposite of a lot of other cultures where it's the other way around, right? Like I am the son of or the daughter of whoever.
That's true. I never thought about it that way, but this goes right into the whole parenting conversation because in Lao culture, children are really cherished, and which is quite the departure from like some of the Chinese heritage, obviously, from a lot of people. Where and you know what, a lot of I would say a lot of waspy, British, where the U.S. is founded by colonial folks from the UK, where children are seen and never heard, and children are secondary to adults. Whereas in Lao culture, children are cherished, like they love children in that culture. So I guess that makes sense that I would be called Mea Connor, mother of Connor. And if I had other children, which kind of sucks, because if I had other children,
then that name would not change.
Regardless, like my mom.
So you would not be Mea Daphne if you had a daughter.
No,
or
whatever. Forget my poor brother John. My mom is forever Mea Ila, or mom of that girl Manila. La is my nickname. So my brother, who cares? He was born second. This is the second kid. Doesn't matter.
Really? Even though, and so there's no boy versus girl thing like there is in Chinese culture, which is very patriarchal, extremely patriarchal.
Yeah, this is just first kid rule, and the mom or the dad, the parent, becomes the parent of name of the firstborn. And that's the culture, and that's how.
What if the kid dies? Is it like poof?
Oh, I'm sure my mom knows some people where that's happened, but that's your new moniker. That's just your moniker. You're the parent of name of the firstborn child, and that's your new name.
And what's father-in-law?
Pa.
So Biden would be Pa Hunter.
Is Hunter the firstborn, or is he the second?
I don't know.
Oh, actually, no. It was the girl that died in the car accident. She was the older sister.
Is that true? Oh, okay.
Yeah. She was the older sister, and the two boys came after. So Joe Biden would be Pa. Oh God, I don't remember the sister's name, but she was like 10 or 11 or something.
Right. Got it.
And the two boys were younger, and they survived the crash. So
okay.
So technically, yeah. Poor Joe, man. What a sad parenting story. I would say that's a no. Whatever he did, don't do.
Oh, to Hunter?
Whatever Joe Biden did as far as being
I think it's according to, I have not read the book. I've read the review of the book, Hunter's book. But by his own account, his father was very distant and remote and not deeply involved. So it's not about what he did. It's about what he didn't do.
Oh, that's very sad. Well, maybe we can bring that up to Lenore too, because there is, what is the distinction between free range parenting, giving the kid space, giving the kid freedom, and being neglectful and distant, right? I mean, how do you distinguish the two? So anyway, with that, let's hop to some headlines because we want to be mindful of our time. We know she's a busy lady, and I appreciate that she'll be joining us. So with that, let's hop to it.
President Trump has signed an executive order imposing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports into the United States. That raises the tariff on aluminum to 25% from the previous 10% that Trump imposed back in 2018 during his first term. It reinstates a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports previously exempted or excluded. Today, simplifying our tariffs, Trump said. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions. On Monday, he talked to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who's seeking a carve-out for Australian steel. He described their talk as constructive and warm, but didn't want to talk on behalf of Trump. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada said yesterday that the tariffs were entirely unjustified and unacceptable, noting that Canada, the U.S.'s biggest source of aluminum and one of its top sources of steel, would respond and retaliate if necessary, but is going to try to work with the U.S. to avoid their implementation in the first place. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, meanwhile, who has also threatened countermeasures in recent weeks, said her country will keep, quote, a cool head. The EU, meanwhile, says it will respond with firm and proportionate countermeasures. The new tariffs are set to take effect March 4th. Trump said he'll also consider additional tariffs on cars, pharmaceuticals, and computer chips.
Wait, so, okay. I don't know what to make of this, Ted, because obviously I think neither do the lawmakers in our supposed allied countries, right, in Europe and Australia. They're like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be our friend. Why are you putting tariffs on our exports? Why us? And I'm sure that's how Canada felt, right?
Oh, it's totally how Canada felt.
Like, what the hell? But in the end, look what happened. Before the tariffs even came into play, Justin Trudeau is sending, 10,000 horse-mounted Canadian Mountie. Are they called Mounties? Is that what they are?
The Royal, what is it? Yeah, they're the Mounties.
Mounted police?
They're the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I believe that's like what it is.
10,000 Clydesdales there.
In the snow, traipsing around in the snow, like a
Budweiser commercial. Trump got what he wanted. Claudia Sheinbaum immediately started moving Mexican federales, the police force, to the border immediately. So what is it that Trump is trying to get from European and Australian allies? Like, what's the deal to be made?
It's a good question, right? I mean, obviously Trump has stuff in mind, and we're not being told everything that's happening behind the scenes in these private conversations. Trump's approach just seems to be like to fire a shot across everyone's bow and just like, I have stuff that I want, and the U.S. has a massive economy, and if you want to be part of it, you're going to have to do whatever the thing is that I have in mind. And I don't know. It's mysterious because it's sort of like, well, it does seem to be working. He's on to something.
Yeah.
But look, this president was elected primarily in order to deal with inflation and grocery prices. Famously, iconically, the price of eggs. I went to the store the other day. Half the eggs that were on offer were empty. Trader Joe's has now imposed in my neighborhood a 1 carton per customer rule on eggs.
Robbie was talking about that yesterday. Even though he's in farm country, $12 per dozen. Can you higher than
14
New York?
here? 14 here.
$14 a dozen?
Depends on where you go, but yeah, across the street from my place. Yeah. So,
Oh my God.
and these aren't even the jumbos. These are just like the regular
The double
non-organic
A.
large ones. Yeah. I mean,
Holy
look,
moly.
I love eggs, but I mean, this is expensive. Yeah,
But
it's in,
I mean, we don't get eggs from Europe. What is imposing or threatening
well,
tariffs
so honestly,
to
bird
do for
flu is
us?
a major contributing factor to the
Yeah.
shortage of eggs. I guess they're sorting through them. Any eggs that are deemed suspect have to be destroyed, or thrown, or
The
given to
hens.
kids to throw at their high school teachers' homes after
That
while
would
they're
be
being
good.
toilet papered.
But the hens were culling hens, and I've seen even some of our viewers in the Rumble chat saying that, is this some kind of weird controlled culling of the birds in order to create an artificial expensive egg price, like an egg
I don't,
cartel,
I
like
really
OPEC?
I think it's a perfect storm. Honestly, I think it's just like one of those fucked up things that, like, I'm sure it kind of drives Trump insane. But I look, listen. Politically, Trump doesn't have to worry that much. He's not running for re-election.
Right.
The price of eggs is not even going to be on anyone's mind by the midterms next year. It's just a symbolic thing. But he's definitely risking inflation for sure.
Yeah. And the steel
With all these tariffs.
I thought he's like this builder guy that wants, discounted rates for raw materials. This can't be good for building. Like
Oh, I thought we're not building anything with eggs, I hope.
No, I'm talking about what's on screen here is the steel. Like why?
Yeah.
That's what I don't get is if you want building to tick up because we're year over year, we still haven't recovered from COVID. If you want raw materials at a better price, I don't.
He's trying to save the steel,
what's
left of the American steel industry.
Maybe that's it.
But there's not much left.
Yeah, I can only assume that's it. All right. Let's keep heading over to your neck of the woods. I don't know if your mayor is doing anything about the egg prices.
No, not really. He's too busy clubbing. Anyway, the Justice Department has ordered federal prosecutors to drop corruption charges against our beautiful mayor, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, arguing in a remarkable departure from longstanding norms that the case interfered with the mayor's ability to help the president crack down against illegal immigration. In a 2-page memo obtained by the AP, acting Deputy AG Emil Bove told prosecutors in New York that they were directed to dismiss the bribery charges against Adams immediately. Bove said the order was not based on the strength of evidence, but rather because it had been brought too close to Adams' re-election campaign and was distracting from the mayor's efforts to assist in the Trump administration's deportations. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Efficiency DOGE head Elon Musk sounded the alarm over a $59 million payment made by FEMA to house migrants in New York. Musk shared on social media his presidential advisory committee had discovered the payment went to luxury hotels which house illegal migrants. He demanded that the expense made last week be reversed. Okay, I mean, there's a lot to get into here. First of all, I think it's fair to say that the very thing that Trump accused the Biden administration of doing, weaponizing the Department of Justice, has now occurred kind of in a reverse. He's de-weaponizing it to the point where he's like defanging it when it's going after someone who really has it coming. I mean, Eric Adams should not be the mayor of New York. I mean, this is not like. Let's think about, Vice President Spiro Agnew. He resigned as vice president, not over anything he did as vice president, over something he did as governor of Maryland, okay, when he accepted bribes from the milk lobby, $10,000 fine. It's like, this is not like it's been discovered that like he's a Me Tooer from when he was a cop, or that he was a DUI that's unrelated to his job. Literally, he's been charged with selling his office, his current office that he currently holds, and he's peddling influence and making New Yorkers more subject to fires by basically looking the other way at possible fire code violations. He's a bad man. Or
look what we're seeing on screen. That's real. right, Ted? I mean, you've
That's
seen
real.
this?
That is real. I mean, what's happened is that Adams is, he went and curried favor with Trump. He
That's right.
offered
He went to
to
Mar-a-Lago
he went
to
to
kiss the
Mar-a-Lago.
ring.
He bent the knee, kissed his ring, did everything else you can imagine to subjugate himself, and obviously said nice things about Trump, and also promised to turn a blind eye to New York City's sanctuary city policy, which has been honored by both Democratic and Republican mayors alike up until now. So that's what this is about, and it's a quid pro quo. It is political corruption. It is. I mean, this is not something that it's a bad look for Trump. New Yorkers aren't going to forget it. Mayor Adams is not going to be reelected next year under any circumstance.
But what about this whole thing here with the migrant thing? If it's quid pro quo, I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like, where Adams,
Yep.
started turning on the migrant thing and being like, no more, don't send any more here, whatever. But then FEMA comes in, and it sounds like FEMA is kind of part of the resist Trump movement. And they're going in and kind of going behind Mayor Adams is back, Donald Trump's back, and now Elon's found out about it. Doge is pissed off about the $59 million in hotel fees.
Well, Adams should be happy because these are people who are not out on the street, right? And it's federal money, not city money, that's going to pay this. So technically speaking, this is exactly what he used to. This is the opposite of what he complained about under Biden, where Biden had opened the border and then allowed so many people to stream into New York, and then the federal government wasn't paying New York's government to compensate them. They are compensating, and it's also helping New York's beleaguered hotel industry post-COVID.
Is it really?
Well, of course, obviously, these are rooms that would be empty otherwise, right? So, I mean, the tourism is way down in New York post-COVID.
I didn't know that. So, I thought people came flooding back into the city.
Trickling back would be more accurate. People have come back, certainly, but and there's I don't want to put too fine a point on it. There's a lot of tourists, but it's still not like it was pre-COVID. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems like the idea that the federal government should not pay bills that it has incurred fair and square is odd to me. I mean, it's like, I don't care who Elon Musk think he is. It's like, you're not. It's like,
you can't.
The federal government took out these rooms, right? They paid for it.
They booked $59 million worth of rooms, and you can't. What are you going to do? Stick the city of New York with it now? If FEMA's the one,
or the hotels, right? I mean, it's just wrong.
That's not right either. So I don't know how Elon is planning on recouping that, but I thought that was an interesting newsworthy thing that happened overnight. That he's like, who's going to pay the bill? Somebody's got to foot the bill because it's already happened. People have already been in $59 million worth of hotel rooms. So in New York City, in Manhattan, Ted, that's what, like 20 rooms?
Exactly.
Right?
I was going to make that joke. I'm glad you did.
So I haven't been there in a couple of years.
With a view of a wall.
Yeah, that's right. $500 a night, a view of the alley, and some heroin addict. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
But that's how it goes in New York City. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to shake out. But it is not, for once, it is not Mayor Adams's fault.
No, this is not. Everything else is, though, and all you ever hear, there's no one ever talks about him in any context other than he's a joke. So he's just he's a punchline, and that's not good. I mean, so literally, it's like, oh, it's 6:30 in the morning. Like, oh, Mayor Adams is probably just leaving the club around now.
Oh my God, that is no way anybody wants to be thought of if you're the mayor of the city. But you know what? My hometown, Karen Bass, after these fires and how horribly she handled that whole thing, and is still currently handling the fallout from it horribly. I don't know if it's better to be a joke like Mayor Adams, like the punchline of a joke, or just be seen as completely stupid and inept like Karen Bass. And I said very early on, Ted, when she was elected, or she was going to be elected, I can't remember where I said, if it was on Sputnik or if it was on the show, but I had some interactions with Mayor Bass, or before she was the mayor, when she was here on Capitol Hill. And she was a very nice lady, and I've said this before, very nice to me, very polite. I did not get the impression that she was too impressive of a person, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's worse. I don't know which is worse, Mayor Bass or Mayor Adams, ineptitude or the punchline. America's two biggest cities. There you go.
Well, I think that Mayor Adams is pretty inept too, to be honest. I mean, things are just continuing to get worse. They're not getting better. So
it's our two biggest cities, Ted. What is there to worry about?
Good point. Speaking of cities, Lyft says it will launch a fleet of robo-taxis using self-driving technology from Intel's Mobileye in Dallas in as soon as 2026, with plans to scale to thousands of vehicles in additional markets in the months to follow. Oh, yay. To signal its seriousness, the company tapped Marubeni, a Japanese conglomerate, to run its fleet operations. Lyft's news comes after Uber dropped new details about its plan to feature Waymo robo-taxis on its platform in Austin and Atlanta later this year. And Tesla recently shared plans to launch a robo-taxi service in Austin as well. Lyft is taking a similar approach to Uber, offering its ride-hail platform to different self-driving developers who want to connect with customers without having to build their own customer-facing operation. Like Uber, Lyft's interest is staying as asset-light as possible, needing other companies to own, operate, and maintain the robo-taxi fleet for customers. Toward that end, Lyft says that Marubeni is a global leader in fleet management with over 900,000 vehicles worldwide through various subsidiaries and joint ventures. Lyft says the company will use its FlexDrive fleet management capabilities to minimize total cost of vehicle ownership and maximize fleet utilization. Marubeni doesn't have any specific experience with ride-hail or autonomous vehicle operations.
Great.
But, yeah, it's awesome. But it has worked with Mobileye on on-demand mobility in Japan. So that was a hard article to follow, I will say. But, basically the long story short is if you live in a city that starts with A, you're probably going to have a lot of like robo-taxis coming and clogging up the traffic in your town. I mean,
look at the screen.
One of the things that happens in places. So, for example, this is like from San Francisco where people get very upset about them. And apparently one of the things that's like annoying, like I don't even know how you would do it in a city like New York, but like, for example, they're programmed not to cross the double yellow line, right? And you're like, okay, that makes sense. You're not supposed to ever cross the double yellow line.
Sure.
But, okay, in the real world, okay, there's exceptions to that. So if you're driving and there's like, let's say there's a car that's double parked there, and you need to go around, you can't, and like they're not leaving. Well, you've got to go over the double line to get around them, right? But the RoboCab will just sit there like a dumb toad and not go around it. So let's say you're here in New York City. This happens all the time. You're stopped at a light, and an emergency service vehicle like an ambulance comes out, or a cop car comes up behind you. And so, okay, you need to run that red light so that the cop or the ambulance can get past and get to where they need to go. Well, the robotaxi won't do that. The robotaxi is not going to run the red light. So the person just like dies in the back of the ambulance. So there's just lots of...
So it won't move over, right, into the
It's a dumb...
intersection.
It's dumb. They're dumb, right? It's not... So like human beings, you know what this reminds me of? Years ago, I had a job working at an office and we used to answer the phone and we switched to voicemail. And I remember my boss asked me, like, because I was answering the phone, okay, so what are most of the calls about? And so I was like, well, first and foremost, people want to request a catalog. Then people want the address. They want our hours. So we put all those things in to request a catalog, press 1. For hours, press 2, so on. But she was like, oh, we should just eliminate any option to talk to a person entirely. And I was like, okay, but 1 out of 10 calls, they do need to talk to a person, right? Because there's something that is not. There's no way that the automated system can answer. That's what this is like. It's like 9 out of 10 times, you can program a car to always stop at the red light, always obey the speed limit, always do a safe following distance, never cross the red yellow line. But what makes a good driver is following the rules, but knowing the exceptions to the rules.
Right.
And I think that's like where I don't know how you solve this problem, because I don't even think that like sophisticated AI can teach these
The
cars
exception
how to drive as well as like a good human driver,
as a good cabbie, like Ted
like a
Rall
good
in the
like a
80s.
good like exactly. I was a
Like
good cabbie.
so, like I personally would not take one of these. Just for my general anxiety and fear of new technology, and Ted and producer Robbie know, I have a general fear and anxiety about new technology, much less putting my life in the hands of new technology, of a freaking driverless car. And then you look at this, look here, this is somebody's home video, right? That they're putting a cone in front, like apparently this is what's happening in places where they're being tested, like San Francisco and Las Vegas, because people hate these other
Yeah,
drivers, and pedestrians hate these robo taxis. All you have to do is put a road cone in front of it, and it will be disabled.
right. It'll just
That
stop.
easy.
Yeah,
It'll just stop,
it's a
and then
verb
block up
there.
traffic
Like,
for
oh, like
everybody else.
that car's been coned, is what they say.
It's being coned. And so for me,
These
it's a
cars have been
non-starter.
vandalized. They've been set on fire. They've been turned
And then,
over.
and what's the liability if it gets into an accident? If it just, people have argued, and of course I see our guest Lenore Skenazy joining us in backstage, the virtual backstage, and for example, I've heard parents debating, putting their kids in an Uber or in a Lyft, because you can do that, you can order that for your kid, and people are like, oh well, now with a robo taxi, it's driverless, there's nobody that's going to molest or diddle your kid. You can just put it in a driverless taxi. And I'm going, no, no, no. I want to put myself in one, much less put my kid in one, because not
Yeah, but
only
if
the
you've got
safety
like
issues.
12, that kid's a spare. Like, whatever.
Well, like I said, in Lao culture, just the number one is the only one that
The only
matters.
one that matters. Yeah.
The only
No, I
one that
mean,
matters
all
is the
kidding
first one.
aside, no, I wouldn't put my kid in one of those either. I mean, here's the thing. And it's very psychological, obviously. But I mean, so statistics show that, at least in theory, driverless cars have a lower rate per 1,000 miles driven of accidents than
Right.
than normal cars. And it's kind of like describing, like, well, flying is a lot safer than, say, driving,
Sure.
but
Sure.
flying doesn't feel more dangerous. I mean, flying does feel more dangerous because
Yeah.
you're hurtling, 6 miles above the earth in a metal tube traveling 600 miles per hour, piloted by someone you've never even laid eyes upon, right?
Right.
So who might fly you into the Alps, as happened that time. When the guy committed suicide. So,
Oh
it
my
just
God. Yeah, I remember.
feels more dangerous. And it's like, there's something about like control. Like, if you're at the wheel, it just feels like it's a big, I don't know. I think we'll get there, but I don't think we're there yet. And I don't like the fact that these are being tested in real cities on in real time. I feel like this should have been tried, like, in a fake environment,
Well,
more.
they have them. There's one actually outside of the Pittsburgh area, where I remember doing a report on this like 10 or 12 years ago, something like that, when this was a concept. So they built out a fake city scenario just outside of Pittsburgh somewhere, with fake pedestrians, like mannequins being pushed across the street, like on wheels,
Hmm.
to see if it stopped. So they've been kind of testing it in quasi real world scenarios for a long time. I just personally am not. I'm an early adopter to a lot of things, but this ain't one of them.
Also, human
So
being, and we got to get to our next story, but human beings are able to respond to problems in a way. I mean, like, like, for example, in New York City, we have the air train, which serves JFK Airport. It connects it's basically a shuttle subway that between the subway
oh,
system and JFK Airport, and it'll take you to each of the individual terminals. There's no conductor. And so let's say there were a conductor. So you're like, okay, I'm in on it, and it's fine. It's all fine until it's not, right? Like if it catches fire, there's no one to help evacuate the train. If, let's say, a passenger's in distress, on a normal subway, passengers can knock on the conductor's booth and say, hey, someone's having a heart attack. And they can call ahead and have EMS waiting at the next station. That option's not available on the air train. So it's just, human beings are being, put out of work and replaced by these things, but there's a price to be paid.
Not just yet.
Okay. And finally, President Trump has ordered the U.S. Treasury Department to stop minting new pennies, citing the high cost of production as wasteful government spending as part of the administration's broad effort to reduce federal spending. Each penny costs about 3.7 cents to make. The U.S. made 3.2 billion pennies last year, costing taxpayers $85 million, excluding the value of the pennies themselves. It's uncertain whether Trump's order is legal or not, or whether you have to get congressional legislation. Actually, I think you do have to have congressional legislation. Congress has constitutional authority over coinage and currency, though federal law allows the Treasury Secretary some discretion in minting. Proponents say that getting rid of the penny would save millions of bucks a year and reduce environmental waste. Critics say that there could be potential economic disruptions, such as price rounding and consumer losses. The nickel also costs more to produce than its value. Each nickel costs 14 cents to make. However, the dime, Manila, is profitable. The dime is actually worth, it costs less than 10 cents to make. I think Trump's not thinking about the inflationary effect that this will have in countries like, I remember when they got rid of the 1 centime coin in France, and they went up to 5 centimes. And to put this into perspective, the 1 centime was worth about 1/5 of a cent. The exchange rate was roughly 5 francs to the dollar. There was everything got rounded up to the next 5, right? And that's what's going to happen now. Nothing will be rounded down, right?
Gotcha.
And then also psychologically, it's true. All the pennies do is end up sitting in people's, in a jar somewhere. But people are going to think like, oh God, so literally a penny is literally not worth anything anymore. So
literally, I did the math. By the way,
have an effect.
The 3.2 billion pennies, the actual, if it cost 85.3 million to produce those 3.2 billion pennies, then you less the amount of the pennies themselves, which is $32 million. So the net cost of making these pennies is roughly $52 million. So that's a net loss. And I'm sure Doge is very angry about that. They're mad about FEMA booking hotels in New York City. They're mad of the net loss, the 50 million that the mint just ran on making pennies. So I don't know. This is a hard one for me. I'm not a coin collector. Everybody hates coins. So is it going to be such a horrible thing, Ted? I mean, first of all, how many people actually carry coins? Number one. Number two, how many people carry dollar bills anymore, or bills? Most people
we're moving to a cashless society. No question about that.
I'm a fan of cash. Don't get me wrong. There are things
I am too.
I don't need trails of, not because they're illegal. I just don't want people knowing what I'm doing. I don't need every piece of my life followed digitally. And I guess that's the last of us of Gen X, Ted, where we still feel like we need some anonymity in the world. But in the way of the world, everybody else is going cashless, and I guess people just don't care anymore. But we talked about picking up a penny right on the road. I'm still one of those people that do that, only if it's heads up. But that's a different thing. All right, let's leave that there and get to our main topic. I'm very excited to talk about this thing. This is something been on my mind for a long time since motherhood befell me. All right, let's hop to it.
All right, should we like our children like we like our livestock? Free range? Older Americans who grew up before electronic trackers and devices and helicopter parenting remember childhoods with a lot more independence than most of our kids see today. Back in the 70s and the 80s, when Manila and I grew up, it wasn't uncommon for the under 18 set to take mass transit all by themselves and disappear for hours between meals with no accountability. It was riskier, but it also made for bigger lives and bigger imaginations. Joining us today is a leading pioneer of today's free-range parenting movement, which is trying to move back to that time. Writer Lenore Skenazy is a writer and a blogger, famous for her 2008 article, Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone. In 2017, she co-founded the nonprofit Let It Grow
Let Grow.
to make easy, normal, and legal, make it easy, legal, normal to give kids the independence they need to grow into capable, confident, and happy adults. In 2018, Utah became the first state in the union to pass the free-range parenting bill, assuring parents that they can give their kids some independence without it being mistaken for neglect, for which the Washington Post credits Lenore for as a contributing influence. Similar laws have since been passed in Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, and several other states. And she is currently the author of Free Range Kids and the president of Let Grow, the nonprofit promoting childhood independence. Lenore Skenazy, thanks for joining us here on the TMI Show.
Thanks. It's so cool that you have the T and the M. That's like that's a perfect name for you guys, TMI. What can I say?
Right. If you listen more frequently, Ted and I often dispense a little too much.
Always too much.
Too much. Little too much TMI. We're not very shy about it. Just saying. Cool. So, you want to start, Ted, or you want me to go after this? Since I'm
Manila,
the newest parent.
Manila, go ahead. And I have questions too, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the newest parent, Lenore, but I'm still in the Gen X generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
My parents are boomers. They're older boomers, and my son he just turned 6, so he's a little kindergartner.
Oh,
I
Put that kid on the metro right now.
He's got 3 years, but they're ticking.
Yeah, so I figure 6 is a bit young to do stuff like that, but and he's quite immature, and I'm gonna put this on COVID and all of that stuff. There's a lot of things that changed with his generation of kids, but broadly speaking, I don't understand how kids or parenting has gotten here to where it is, where we're helicopter parenting, especially people in my age group in their 40s, who we were kids in the 80s, where we were still, I remember riding bikes, drinking from the water hose, the neighbor's water hose, not even your own. Wow. And I mean, gosh, daredevil. We're riding our bikes to the local convenience store to go buy candy on our own. We went to Denny's. They would ask us if we wanted to sit in smoking or non-smoking. I mean, we're like 10-year-old kids, right? And we were totally fine. The rule was come home before the streetlights came on, clean up before dinner. And that was that. And if you didn't come home, I would have Grandpa walk down the street to our cul-de-sac and come grab me by the ear and pick up my bike with the other hand and say, get inside. It's time to go home. So considering kids of my era growing up like that, I think I just spoke to, the millions of people that had a similar experience. How did my people in my age group become these helicopter parents if we had that kind of freedom as children?
Well, that is what the Free Range Kids book is about, but I'll whip us through what I think are the 4 sort of obvious reasons, and then a 5th reason that's a little amorphous. One is that when you were growing up, it was just the dawn of cable television, the 24-hour news cycle, and then along came the internet. In the 80s became the era that we saw the kids on the milk cartons. Law and Order started back then. So we just got sort of an onslaught of terrifying, scary stories that were relentlessly posted on all the media, making it feel like anytime you let your child go outside, they were going to be kidnapped, raped, and eaten by a stranger. And in fact, stranger danger is like the least of children's fears or worries. I mean, it actually is high, I think, as a worry, but it shouldn't be, because the vast majority of crimes against kids are committed by people they know, not even by the Uber drivers that you were talking about earlier. It's, it's by a family friend or a stepfather or whatever. So thinking about stranger danger pointed us in the wrong direction, and it made the entire world seem scary and only the home seems safe. We have a litigious culture. You start thinking about things like a lawyer does. What could be, what could I be sued for? What is safe enough? You have an expert culture telling you how to do things exactly right. I always get the Parents Magazine emails just so I can, get my daily dose of rage when it says, remember, every second you should be pointing things out to your child and saying, look, the border here is green. Green starts with G. Can you say G? Gruh. That's a blend. Everything becomes a teachable moment where adults are supposed to be involved and concierging and assisting and high-fiving. And then you have a marketplace that knows that the easiest dollar to get from any human being is the dollar of a parent that you have made afraid of something. And then you say, oh, but wait, this will keep your kid safe, or this will get your kid ahead. Those are the main things that I talk about in the book. But I think that the thing that has really changed from the 80s till now is the idea that we can and must know everything that our children are doing, everything that they're doing. And that if we do, we can control them and control their fate, their future, their friends, everything about them if we only pay more attention, which is a big lie. And it's also driving parents crazy because they feel like anything bad that happens is because of them and that they can prevent anything bad. And it's driving the kids crazy because their parents are always with them. So that's my summation of why we're so much more afraid than our parents were for us.
Yeah, I remember the whole Adam Walsh thing, right?
Yes.
America's Most Wanted. That
1982. Yeah.
And Eton Patz also, his disappearance had a massive influence on this. And of course, obviously, the 1970s, I mean, there was a spate of serial killers, although the victims were for the most part not children. But
there's never been a time in human history when there's been zero crime, zero heinous crime. But in terms of the crime rate, the crime was really going up in the 70s and in the 80s, and it peaked around 93, and then it came down, and it's had some little uptick since then, but it has never gotten up to where it was in the 90s. It's really low, even with the COVID uptick, even with the, maybe shoplifting is higher than before, but certainly not crimes against children.
So, Lenore, what is the, I think that part, my ex-wife insisted that our son, install Life 360 on his phone. Basically, it's a spy app.
Now he's 35.
And I refuse, and I was like, "Look, you do what you want, but I'm not." She's like, "You should join and you should watch him." I'm like, "I'm not doing that." And when she and I separated and got divorced, I was like, "You should take that off your phone," and he did. And there were times when I just didn't know where he was. Many times.
How old are we talking about? Just
15, 14. And so I guess actually 13, 14 and then on. And, I just decided I think it's important I think privacy is important. I think kids need to know sometimes that that their parents don't know where they are. And that they can lie to their parents and say oh, I was at the library, when in reality, they were smoking weed in the woods with their friends. And I actually think that's important. I think people psychologically need to have private spaces. They have to have secrets. They have to have things that are just for them and maybe for them and their friends. And I think trying to take that away from people is psychologically damaging. And because it's you have to be able to fuck up in life, right? And then it's interesting because now voluntarily, I didn't ask for it. He has me. He has his location services on, and I can look anytime I want and see where he is. There's been times where, he's running late, hours late for dinner or whatever, and I'm like, God damn it, where's that kid? And it's and he'll say, he'll text me and he'll be like, oh, I'm on my way back. I'm stuck on the subway. And then I'll check just to see how far he really is, to see if I should eat without him. And he's he's actually fucking around in some park in Queens, right? And it's here's the trade-off. I have never once said to him, hey, I know you lied to me. It's the only purpose for this would ever be if he really vanished. I need to tell the NYPD his last known location was. and it's like, if he ever just took me off it, I'd be like, okay, that's completely your thing. So, I mean, I think my point is that parents should not want this. This is like, I think it's bad for their kids. It's bad for them too. And like you said, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about the role of secrets, but we're being told that we're not allowed to have secrets from,
Yeah.
you know, really from not just from our parents, but really from each other. Like we're posting our meals on Facebook. Everyone knows where everyone is.
It's what Manila was saying earlier, that she sometimes uses cash because there's no reason that everybody has to know every last purchase she made or where
Right.
she was. The thing that I've been thinking about tracking, which is so interesting, and people don't usually jump into tracking, so thank you. They usually talk about, teachable moments and school and after school activities as opposed to this particular issue. But the thing about knowing everything about where your kid is, and many of these devices do more than that. I mean, they allow you to see all the text that your kid is sending,
Mm-hmm.
what they're receiving. There's a thing called the Gizmo watch that small kids can wear, and it allows them to call you and you to call them. But if they don't pick up immediately when you call and you're thinking, oh my God, they're in a trunk, it also allows you to press a button and it becomes a bugging device. And you can literally listen in on whatever conversation they're having. And so what if they're talking about, like, I hate my sister or I hate my dad? I mean, these are things that
It's like the Jodie Foster episode of Black Mirror.
It is exactly like that. Yes. And it doesn't, the ironic thing is it's supposed to give you peace of mind, but it does the opposite, because now anytime that you're, wondering, well, why are they there? Or why aren't they, why can't I find them? And it's because they left their phone at school, or it's in a locker.
And if your kid I'm sorry to interrupt, but these things don't even work, right? Like if your kid was actually kidnapped,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that even
I'm going to kidnap you, but you've got to keep one electronic device. What will it be?
Yeah, I mean, the kidnapper is probably going to take the phone and turn it off. And if it's off, the location services don't work. Right, that's it. So it's literally unless you geotag the kid, it's not going to work.
I think we're agreeing that first of all, it's not preventing the thing that people are most afraid of. Right. And what it really is doing is sort of rewriting the parent-child relationship into one where you never trust the kid. You never trust them to be safe, whether that's because they're doing dumb things or because of the evil world. And you never trust yourself to let go, that you've raised a kid who is self-sufficient enough, who can rally if they get on the wrong train or they're bullied by somebody. And what I've thought about, and I don't know even how to test it, but the whole idea of attachment theory is that you must be strongly attached to the person, your mother or father, both, somebody who loves and knows you. And even as a toddler, you start moving a little bit away, and then you run away, and then you glance back, and there's your dad. And so you can run a little further. I mean, Manila, you have a kid who's 6 who was doing this recently. They come back when they're scared, right? But they know you're there. And that allows them to go further and further away and become these autonomous people. Now, what if you have a phone that allows you to contact your dad or your mom whenever they're afraid or whenever they're lost or whenever they need you to Venmo another $5? It doesn't allow you, the kid, the freedom and the necessity of figuring out how to be part of the world without your parent always with you. And your parent doesn't get detached enough to see that, hey, look, you can do some things on your own. I don't always have to be with you for you to be safe or smart. And so it gives them both this jolt of confidence because they are not reachable, because they are not trackable. And this video that you've been showing behind our chat today shows these children at a school in Las Vegas, public school, Ortwine Public Elementary. And all of them were given what we call the Let Grow experience, which is a free thing that Let Grow publishes, which is a homework assignment that tells kids to go home and do something new on their own without their parents. And it's so, I'd say, revolutionary because it helps all the parents at a school. They all have to let go, right? They don't even have a choice, right? The homework assignment says their kid has to do something on their own. You talk about it with your kid. What do you want to do? Oh, I want to walk the dog. I want to go to the park. I want to make pancakes, whatever it is. But then you do separate. And only that gives you the jolt of confidence to realize, like, oh, my kid can do that. Oh, you know what? She screwed up. She burned herself a little on the pan, or the pancakes are horrible because she used too much baking soda, or he got lost on the way home, but it's all okay. We don't realize that anything can be okay without us being there. And so Let Grow's entire ethos is trying to make it normal again to have some childhood independence, so that kids get to see that they're competent, the world isn't so terrifying, their parents trust them. That's a jolt of confidence too. And the parents get that same confidence. And without that, like you were talking about with tracking, everybody starts feeling like the world is too scary, my child is too incompetent, I'm too worried, I deserve constant reassurance. And that's not the case. You don't deserve constant reassurance. The real reassurance comes from raising a kid who can do some things on their own.
Your kid needs the reassurance. I think it's important for the kid to be able to reach you is more important than for
when they need
you to be able to reach the kid.
Sorry, I know I'm radical, but I must say no. And I will give you an example as to why. There was, this is like my easiest example, so I've given it before, but there was a woman who was quoted in an article in the Wall Street Journal that was literally on how to give your kids a free range childhood in the 2020s. And she said she loved when she was a kid, and you guys probably remember this too. Actually, Manila, you were talking about this at the beginning, when she would go off by herself or with a friend and go to the local creek and spend time there, just, fishing, or, throwing rocks or picking up pebbles or looking at the leaves, daydreaming. She relished that time on her own. And she wanted to give it to her own child who was 8. And so she said, thank God it was so easy to do because I gave her a phone. And it really worked, because one time when she was on her way to wherever, I guess a creek, on her bike, and the bike chain fell off, she was immediately able to call my husband, who came and fixed the chain for her. And I'm like, that's not the same experience.
No.
You got to learn how to fix the chain yourself.
No. When you're riding your bike to Denny's, like my best friend Tina and I, who, by the way, because of, I would say, our childhood adventures, and we had a whole block full of children, right? Tina is the godmother to my son. And when Tina and I would ride all over the subdivision, everywhere, and if our bike chains fell off, which they often did, we just either try to fix it ourselves, pinch our fingers, get our fingers dirty. And here's 2 little girls, right? A little Asian girl and a little redheaded girl ride our bikes down the street, and things happen, and you kind of you figure out resilience, because there were no cell phones and there weren't pay phones everywhere. They still existed, but we didn't, if we're wherever, right, in near the San Gabriel River. I'm from Los Angeles, in the river valley bed, doing monkey things that kids do or did back then, right? Your chain falls, there's nobody to call. You just kind of have to figure it out yourself, or you drag your bike home and deal with it when you get home, when an adult is home. And, sometimes I looked back on that childhood and thought, were we latchkey kids? Was that just normal? Were we neglected? But at the end of the day, me as an adult woman, I'm resilient because of it. I don't take shit lying down because of it. And now you watch these reality shows such as I Want to Marry, so I'm in love with a mama's boy, or something like that, right?
I haven't heard of that. Wow.
It's pretty hilarious, and these are young Gen Zers, I suppose. They're 20 somethings, and these are all mama's boys, and their parents are like my age, right, in their mid 40s, maybe 50, and these young men rely on their moms for everything, and as much as I adore my one and only son, I don't want that. I want him to be resilient and do shit on his own. That when he's 18, should I drop dead because I'm an older mom, that he'll be fine, that he could figure it out at 18. God forbid. But, if it happens, that I know he will be fine, and I will die okay, knowing that my kid can survive this cruel world without me. And this is kind of what we're seeing with this younger generation, that women in the dating pool are complaining that there's this legion of boys that can't do anything without mommy. And I feel like that also contributes to, you know, the failure to launch, people not getting married, people not making babies. It's just this whole cultural phenomenon that's happening in industrialized nations. We're looking at birth rate collapse in industrialized nations. And I wonder if that has something to do with it.
I think, I'm sure there are a lot of factors. And one factor that's sort of the flip side of what you're talking about is who wants to have kids if you have to drop whatever you're doing at any single second and run off and fix their bike chain. And by the way, bring them a cupcake and let them know everything's going to be okay. And then when they get a little older, 4 nights a week, you're at soccer practice, and then you're taking them to a travel game on the weekends. And then you have to sign the reading log and help them with the homework and get them to Kumon and make the organic baby food. It's just, it's relentless pressure on the parent and zero downtime, which also is the same thing to the kid because they're always being watched. And the woman who wrote The Blessings of a Skin Knee, Wendy Mogul, said a sentence that haunts me, which is that sometimes you think that your kids' friends are kind of nicer or smarter or better than your own kids. And she said that's not surprising because you're looking at your own kids. And when you look at anything closely, really closely, you notice the flaws. And right now we're spending so much time with our kids, whether it's in the car or at the game or doing the homework or just watching them all the time. University of Michigan poll found that 50% of parents of kids aged 9 to 11 won't let them go to another aisle at the grocery store, at the store. They didn't say grocery store. So when you're spending that much time, you're going to see everything they do that seems dumb or mean or risky or impractical or slow. And you're going to step in. And then you think, well, I have to step in because of this reason. And then the kid doesn't learn how to fix the bike chain or go get the peas. And so you're doing it for them again. And the Surgeon General said that, did a huge report on how kids are going nuts these days. They're just anxious and depressed. Well, that's been going on for decades as their independence and freedom and mobility has gone down. Their anxiety and depression have gone up. There was a study in pediatrics. And then, so the kids are going crazy, but then the Surgeon General also pointed out that the parents are going crazy. And I think one reason is that they're just knotted together too tightly. And of course, I think that the technology and the tracking knots them together even more and even longer. So what we really have to do, what Let Grow's, reason for being is to make it easy, normal, and legal to give kids back some independence and to do it on a wholesale level. That's why we work through schools with our free programs. If everybody at a school is sending the kids to go walk to the store or make those pancakes, well, then you don't feel guilty or weird letting your kid do it because everybody's letting their kid do something. And then your kid comes back and you got that jolt of pride and confidence in them that allows you to let them to do it again. So you sort of have to put the cart before the horse. You have to push people to let their kid go before they're ready because they won't be ready. And then they get this surge of dopamine thrill of seeing their kid like, look, my kid can do something on their own. And I have to go in a few minutes, but I just wanted to show that the other video that we'll watch program for schools, all our stuff is free. Keep the schools open for free play. A phone-free area where kids can spend hours after school, not in Kumon, not in chess, not in travel soccer, just hanging out with each other. The third graders give the kindergartners piggyback rides. Everybody gets, sort of knotted together in a nice way in the school, woven together. And there's this wildlife sanctuary for the old-fashioned childhood we've been talking about, where kids are just making their own fun.
Lenore, one quick last question before you go. I'm glad you brought up the legal aspect. I mean, parents who do this are in legal peril in many states. Here in New York, I remember taking note of the fact that you cannot legally leave your child alone overnight more than one at all until the kid is 16, or at least it was like that. But
yeah, that isn't the law. But what is the law in most states, and the reason we've changed the neglect laws in 8 states, is that it usually says that parents must provide proper supervision to their kids, and that leaves a lot of discretion to the authorities. And we would like to close that and make it so that the law that passed in 8 states is the Reasonable Childhood Independence Law. And it says that neglect is when you put your kid in obvious, serious danger, not anytime you take your eyes off them. So simply letting your kid walk to school, or certainly a 16-year-old
Right.
or even a 12-year-old, babysitting.
I walked to school in second grade. It's
Me
2
too.
miles. And there was that famous case in, I think it was in New York, with a Scandinavian couple who had their kid outside on the sidewalk on a cold day, but bundled up in there.
In a
And this is a
stroller right
common thing
outside the
that they do
cafe.
over there in
Right.
Europe. And so, but people were scandalized. They called the police. It's like
Oh.
the parents were right inside.
Right.
And yeah, and
Right. But the other thing is it's sort of like kidnapping. I mean, these cases are outrageous and upsetting, but they are so rare. That case was, I would say, at least 50, probably 20 years ago
yeah.
at this point. So it's not like most parents are getting arrested for letting their kids, play
But it
outside.
spooks parents. That kind
Everything
of coverage.
spooks parents. We were just talking about, the kidnapping spooks them and the police spook them. So if we re-normalize kids being out and about, it means that you don't have to be spooked anymore because it becomes the norm. So that's really what we're trying to do. Make childhood independence normal again.
Other moms, stop giving stink eye when I let my kid wander more than 20 yards from me.
You know what? Maybe try to do a couple things with them. I mean, if they're local moms, have a free play Fridays in your front lawn, and then people get used to the kids playing outside together. You just have to. People don't want to live upset and frightened all the time. And they really need the experience of living that other way, even if it's a little forced at the beginning or a little unnatural, because that allows them to start breathing easier. You hear about neighborhoods where kids are all zooming around, or there's a nightly game of kickball, or the kids are on their bikes again, whether or not the grandpas pull them by their ear. And you can make your neighborhood into that. That's one of the things that we also propose, is that keep one afternoon a week free for and get the local kids on board. I mean, the other parents will be grateful too.
I've got to look into that, because the kids on this block don't seem to ever want to come out, and it's just saddens me because my son feels lonely because he knows there are other children that live on this block, but he only sees them when they're getting in and out of the car.
Right, and sometimes you don't even see that because they're in and out in the garage. So all you see is the car. So I would print up little flyers, put them in the local mailboxes. Hey, on Friday afternoons from 4 to 6, I'm going to sit on my front. I'm going to be in the front window, or if it's warm where you are, on the front lawn. And any kids who want to play, feel free to drop them off, and it'll just be, the kids will get to know each other. And in fact, when that happens, then you've started creating a neighborhood where they will start zooming around. I also heard of one mom who's starting what she calls a friendship club for 1 week in the summer or during spring break. She has 4 different kids. She has her kid and then 3 of the friends, and they're all allowed to go to each other's houses. So it's not the entire run of the neighborhood, but it is 4 houses where all the moms have said, yeah, if they end up at my house, I'll feed them. If they end up at your house, you feed them. And just let them have a little independence and fun again, and not just being driven places to another adult run activity.
Right.
So,
yeah, shuttled to soccer practice and all that stuff, like you said. I was turning into that mom, and I've recently pulled back because I reflected on my own childhood, and I realized, you know what? He needs to be bored sometimes. He needs to go to the backyard and go dig around in the dirt.
Is where creativity comes from. You ever notice there aren't that many great bands from big cities? Like,
I had not noticed. That's interesting. Aren't the Rolling Stones from London?
Yeah, they're an exception. There are, like, if you look at British history of British rock, most of them were from
usually
out in the hinterlands. Yeah,
Scotland, right, among the heat. What is it? The heather, right?
Manchester, depressing places where there was nothing to do.
Right. He's a rock genius, moved to Manchester, right? Or Cincinnati. Okay, listen, this was fun chatting with you guys. I would just recommend people check out Let Grow, because, as I said, all our materials are free. There's stuff for parents, but there's also stuff for schools, and you can just let your schools know that these are the same, cures, or whatever you want to call them, as recommended in The Anxious Generation, written by my Let Grow co-founder, Jonathan Haidt. He says you can't just take away phones, you have to open the door, and this is how to open the door.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Thank you so much.
Right, Lenore.
Thank you, guys.
Come back
so
again
great.
another time.
Please come back.
I'm around, and Ted, I'm in your town. So
all right, let's get together.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
are you in? You're in Manhattan.
No, I'm in Queens.
It's the
You're
same thing.
Queens.
All the rock bands.
It's all connected.
Pink Ramones, right? Simon and
Woo!
Garfunkel. It's us.
Cuckoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Bye, you guys.
Lenore
All right.
Skenazy. Thank you so much. All right, guys, make sure you guys check out Lenore Skenazy's book called, I'm going to put it on the screen actually, rather than telling you about it. There it is. Free Range Kids, the second edition, Lenore Skenazy. She was once dubbed, Ted, the worst mom in America.
I remember that. No, she was. I mean, she took so much shit.
I know.
For her point of view, which was correct. And it's like she was, basically New Yorkers told her, and this was very classist, and also there was like it's sort of a reverse racism thing going on here, which was like, it's like, you're white lady and you're sending your kid on the subway in 4th or 5th grade.
What does that got to do with anything?
Well, in New York City, you see lots of Black and Latino and Asian kids on the subway who are younger than that. And there's no school bus system in New York City, right? So like,
really?
Yeah, like if your kid goes to, like your kid gets a subway pass, and they take the subway to school. So, and often their school, like, my kid, he had to take 3 different subway lines to get to school every day. It was far. He was all the way down in Chinatown on the other side of Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
And so the point is that, you'd see like 6, 7, 8-year-olds on the subway. And when they're not like white kids, it's like everyone's whatever. And when they're like, white kids, it's like, oh, well, that you're not being a good parent. The implication is that like people of color are not good parents. I mean, it's ridiculous. And actually it's like,
or that somehow there's a different standard for different ethnic people.
Right. Which is obviously ridiculous. And you look, the sub is, here's the thing. We didn't talk about this. Are there really risks for doing this? Of course there are, because life has risk. I mean, but like, we all have to live with that risk. We don't stay inside because like, you could be hit by a car, you could, whatever. I mean, bad things can and do happen to people, but you can't live that way.
I've got a family member who I'm not gonna whittle down too much that I kind of identify her or out her for this, but I have a family member who has a daughter who is now 23, I think, or early 20s, right? But this particular family member, this woman, the mom, was so much of a helicopter parent that all the way to college, while the daughter was dorming and wanted to come home on the weekends or whatever, she would drive to go pick up the kid. The kid eventually got her own driver's license and then still wouldn't let her kid drive the car or ever get on the freeway or ever. I mean, this is talk about keeping your kid under your thumb. I see a huge case of arrested development in this particular family member being in her early 20s, because let me tell you, Ted, when I was 23 or 24, I was flying cross country to New York City to party with certain people I knew, up at 98th and Amsterdam, near the Columbia University campus. I was partying and doing what you're supposed to be doing when you're 23 and 24. This particular family member, because her mom literally wanted to spoon feed her, never let her out of the house. And I mean, she was 10 years old and her mom was still trying to force feed her by hand. Like, this is crazy. It was crazy. And I think that is a disservice to kids. And I always said, one day, if I ever have a kid, that is not the way I'm going to do it. I mean, sure, you do things age appropriate. I'm not saying I'm going to throw out my kindergartner onto the street now and be like, go play in the street. That's not what I'm saying. And I don't think that's what Lenore is saying. There's age appropriate stuff. And for me, I was a little more mature. I think when I was 6 or 7, around Connor's age, he's a little immature. But you have to assess your own kid and assess their, some kids are smarter than others. Some kids are stronger than others.
Sure.
Assess your kid. Be real about who your kid is. My kid is very smart, but very immature. And I know that.
And you
and I
can, yeah, and
accept it.
look, you can go too far. My father, when I didn't know how to swim. I was, I think, 7. He took me to the public pool and threw me in the deep end, and I sunk like a stone all the way to the bottom of there, and there I was, and I still have nightmares about it. And I remember the lifeguard fished me out, and then my father came over, and the lifeguard was a young man, and he punched my father in the face. And so, you can go too far.
Well, I mean, that's how I learned to swim too. Not in the deep end, but I've just kind of pushed off the side of the shallow end, and when you're flailing, you have my friend's older sister jumped in and picked me up. But yeah, that's how I learned to swim. But there were no parents around either. That was the funny thing is, I mean, this is the 80s, and we all turned out all right. Do accidents happen? Absolutely. That's I'm trying to find balance.
Not everyone makes it. I had a good friend.
That's life.
Got run over riding a moped when we were both 15 years old. He didn't do anything wrong. He a stupid, stupid kid, a stupid guy ran the stop sign in the burbs. Stuff happens. It just does.
I recently had a friend, same thing, riding his e-bike and in the suburbs. And recently, my friend's son was hit by a car and ultimately died very recently. 15 years old, but I mean, that's going to happen. You can't stop kids from living. And I'm such a proponent of go out there and create your own adventure, right? Like those were my favorite books growing up, like, pick your own ending or whatever. I don't want to be that mom where, like Lenore outlined, where you over plan and over schedule and over everything. And that stresses you. Control. That stresses you out as the parent. And you know what? Furthermore, Ted, last thing I'm going to say, because I know we got to get going. You got an appointment. But why are we in this place in society where parents are so fucking judgy of one another, giving side eye about, like I told you, these parent-teacher conference things that I have to go to, these PTA things. And everybody wants to be this perfect, perfect mom. And I'm rolling over there just short of having a cigarette dangling out of my lip, and wearing like Doc Martens. Everyone is so judgy, wanting to be like this Martha Stewart-esque mom. And I'm like, just get over yourselves.
Well, you just can't worry. Seriously. You can't worry about what other people are doing.
But those are the ones that call the cops on you, Ted. When you're a kid, those are the moms. Those are the ones. That's the problem, is we live in this society where, like Lenore said, it is not normalized anymore that children have any autonomy. And I think we're just creating this whole needy, gross generation of kids. Go do for yourself, man. And it doesn't mean I'm going to tell my kid to go, bake his own quiche tomorrow. He's 6. It's not age appropriate, but still, that goes to the point, right? Is kids need some autonomy. Mom and dad need some autonomy. Like, it just is. I don't want to be consumed by my identity of I'm a mom.
Right. Okay.
That's it.
All right.
So there we go. We got to have Lenore back. Good stuff.
Yeah, no, she's great.
Yeah. And Ted, like, it never happens for men. You guys don't lose your identity. You don't become just dad. People don't look at you as just dad. Even though you are a dad, people don't look at Ted Rall and go, Dad. People see Ted Rall. When you're a mom, it's the opposite.
Although without a doubt, it's the most rewarding. It's a cliche, but it's the most rewarding and difficult thing I've ever done. Yeah. It's my biggest accomplishment too, because I didn't really have I didn't have good parents, so I didn't have any role models, and I didn't have any aunts or uncles that I could watch. So I basically had to figure this out by myself, and so far so good. So it's bigger than winning. It's much bigger than winning a Pulitzer Prize or whatever.
It's a good feeling. I've met your son. I like him. He's a good young man, handsome kid, and I could see him doing good things. But your identity is not tethered to that, and my identity is not tethered to being a mom. Whereas, it's more often than not women are tied to that mom identity. Like that is their identity, mom. And
That's true.
Those are the ladies that call the cops.
Well, beware of them.
Be wary. Be wary in the suburbs. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, whatever platform you're watching. That goes a million miles to helping this channel grow. So please, please, please hit the like and subscribe. It doesn't hurt you, but it helps us a ton. We'll be back again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. So adios, amigos. A lot of stuff to talk about tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.